Hey guys, it's Leah, and it is Monday, which means that it is Open Mouth Monday. However, in all honesty, I might not get this video uploaded until Tight Lip Tuesday. But today I had a thought. I wanted to share with you a conversation. It's kind of an ongoing thing in our home, a little bit back and forth, but it's concerning homesteading and where homesteading has gone from its original roots. In a time right now where there's such high unemployment due to the pandemic, businesses shutting down, number of workers being reduced from place to place. People are trying more and more to figure out how to meet their basic needs. They're trying to figure out how to feed their family. They're trying to figure out how to keep the bills paid so the roof stays over their head, clothes on the back. And all these skills that we see as or things that we see that we need to do are actually skills. Now, you can put them under survival skills. You can put them under homesteading skills. I guess it just depends on what avenue you're coming from. For us, it's a homesteading thing, and homesteading, because that's the way of life. Survival is something you do, I think, when there's this emergency situation. And so when those skills come out, you've learned the skills hopefully by then, and you're able to implement them into a survival mode. If you're a homesteader, you've already established these skills. These skills aren't just something you typically learn to put on the back burner. They're something that you do all the time. It's like being a Christian. If you're a Christian, if you are a true Christian, you try to follow Christ every day. That doesn't mean you don't fail. I reemphasize that over and over, but it's not a Sunday Christian only. You don't just go to church, you're Christian on Sunday, and the rest of the way you live the rest of the time you live as the world the rest of the week. So I think that's kind of the difference. I think that's kind of the difference with survival and homesteading. They share the same skills, but they're implemented at different times. Now, with that said, one of the things, or the thing that we've talked about this before on our channel. In fact, we've talked about it throughout the years, on several occasions. And it seems with the events that I just discussed that are going on and the way people are trying to adjust their lifestyle, it seems more important than ever to bring it to the forefront again. So up front, I know that this will not be popular with some people. And that's okay. It's a good thing that Ron and I really don't care about our popularity status, because if we did, there's a lot of things that we say that we wouldn't say. And since we don't really care, how popular we are or aren't, when we feel like there's something that needs to be said, we're going to say it. Now, we do try to do it tactfully, but that doesn't mean we're not going to offend. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have, at times, passion behind what we're stating. Because, if you believe something, I don't know how you can believe it and not be passionate about it. And I know there are people that feel that that's possible, but I will always try to be as polite as possible, but I will speak the truth. And in this situation, it just feels so much, it's reinforced so often that homesteading today with so many is not what homesteading originally set out to be. Homesteading originally set out to be an opportunity for what we call the have-nots to be able to obtain something that belonged to them without being owned by someone else. Whether they started with a grub stake, and in that terms, I know that term's not used a lot in today's world of homesteading, but back in the 70s, it was a big deal. A grub stake, did you start with a grub stake or did you start without a grub stake? Meaning, did you start with money or did you start without money? And in today's world, we often have to decide, do we start something with debt or do we wait till we get out of debt? In reality today, it's almost impossible to begin something without debt. But the key is to look at when it comes to homesteading, what you're doing and why you're doing it. Most of us who do homesteading, no matter what kind, will say that, we do it to be more self-sustainable. We do it to be more independent. And that is very true. But what we see the problem with homesteading today is the modern mentality of how we live in society today is often brought into that realm, because homesteading now is trendy. Homesteading's been trendy for about the past 20 years. especially the past 10. It's one of those catchwords. Hey, I'm a homesteader. it's almost like it gives clout to you by being able to say that. Over the years, Ron and I have watched, for lack of a better word, we'll use the word institution, but we've watched a lot of institutions that we have loved and respected and been part of be hijacked by the mainstream philosophy of living. And sometimes we've actually had a few pleasant surprises where we say, oh, that wasn't an all bad idea that this was brought into it. But more often than not, we've been horrified at the effect that bringing in the mainstream philosophy has had on those institutions. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail of the institutions. I'll just throw some out there, and then you can read into it what you want. But, for example, the Church of God, family, being a man, being a woman, or womanhood and manhood, fatherhood and motherhood. These things have all been hijacked by political correctness. They've all been hijacked by trendy stuff, and they have come so far from the origin of what was healthy and what was good that they're unrecognizable in many situations. And we feel that that's what's been going on with homesteading. And the reason we bring this up is because in our society, in our world today, we have this need to keep up appearances. That's been going on since man was created, yes. But if we look back at the history of our country, and we'll just use our country, if you look back at the history of our country, and the development of technologies and such things, we have become so cushiony as a people that how this country was founded, how our great-great-great-grandparents or their great-great-great-grandparents, the things they worked for, our lifestyle today would be unidentifiable to them. Or maybe I should say, we've tried to look at those things, and that lifestyle is unidentifiable to us. With homesteading, again, homesteading was an opportunity when you realized that you wanted to be not dependent upon someone else, that you didn't want to be dependent upon owing. You did not want to be indebted. And indebted means to be enslaved, okay? Put all the political correctness there aside, because anytime a man is indebted to somebody, he's enslaved. That means that thing owns him, and he has to work for that thing. And you can look at anybody with any type of debt that is not able to go pay it right off. They're enslaved to paying that debt. And they still don't own anything. You get a 30-year mortgage on a house. You know what? If you pay 15 years in that house and you lose your job and you can't pay your mortgage, those 15 years are out the window. And you have nothing to show for it unless you can sell that house and try to reap something from it. But bummer to be you if the housing market is down, if there's not a buyer for the house. You have given your time and your life to pay for something that you don't even possess. Same thing with a car. You get a car, and we get all these luxury car type things now. These aren't just items of necessity. These are items of luxury. We've shared in our posts before that we have debt. Now, our debt was incurred because, first off, it was choices we made for me to be at home, to be with the children, to homeschool, and out of necessities, buying a home, having to have a car. But when you carry a debt, the pressure and the struggle and the stress is still the same, whether you've bought it for necessities or whether you've bought it for wants. The only difference is that necessities you can't get around, wants you can. And when I look at homesteaders, a lot of homesteaders today, they're coming into this bringing in the worldly mentality of success, wanting to keep up with the Joneses, wanting the peers to see how successful they are and how they appear to have it all. And in our world, in our modern day philosophy, it's not just a matter of having a home and having a vehicle to get you where you need to go, but it's a matter of having toys that we deem to be tools, and tools, not just any tool will do. We have to have the best tools, and it doesn't matter if we increase in our indebtedness. When you start homesteading, I feel that the whole point in homesteading is to become, again, self-sufficient, to become, self-sustainable. And if you have debt when you start homesteading, your focus should be to pay it off, not to incur more debt for things that you can avoid. Too often in life, our aspirations are too high for what we're able to do. The living within your means is seldom taught and even less respected than go ahead and, encourage people to get a loan that maybe they can afford with their paycheck, but they're going to be paying it for 30 years, or they're going to be paying it for 15 years. And then what happens to these situations when pandemics hit or just injury hits? We have talked about all this before, just the importance of looking ahead. And in the big spectrum of things, our debt is not, in comparison when we look at the average debt ratio per person, our debt's not bad at all, but our debt is still oppressive. And the Bible speaks very clearly about the ills of being in debt. Now, I would not tell anybody to wait to start homesteading before you're out of debt, because again, that doesn't happen. But I would beg, especially you younger people, don't go into more debt when you start a homestead. I don't care if your neighbors have the newest car and the newest equipment and the perfect everything, and you're living in a little shack, one room shack, having to hand hoe your garden. It's the Joneses mentality, the fake facade of success that keeps the oppression on an individual when they're turning to something that's supposed to be freeing to them, that's supposed to give them independence. Homesteading gives you the opportunity to create a heritage for you, for your children, and if not for your own family if you don't have one, but for those that are coming after you. The story about the man, he made it across the rocky ravine with the water, and then he turned around and built a bridge, and a traveler by said, "Why did you do that?" "Because you've already made it across." And he said, "I made it across, but the young man coming after me might not." And I think that it's applicable to encourage those. We've been homesteading for a long time. In fact, we've been homesteading longer than most other people on YouTube. We have been homesteading since 1997. Now, I'm not saying everybody on YouTube, but we've been homesteading longer than most people on YouTube. And we've learned a lot in that time. We've also, even though we've had debt, have always believed that it's not worth going into debt for anything you don't need. Because the debt that you do need is going to be restrictive and possessive enough. And if you go into debt, if you go into homesteading and you think you have to have this, that, and the other thing to make it, I encourage you to step back and look at what the whole point in homesteading is. And ask yourself, can you back off from that dream a little bit? Can you give yourself time to let that dream manifest itself through hard work, through perseverance, by sacrifice, by living modestly, and maybe someday it'll pay off and you'll be able to live a little bit more extravagantly. But we shouldn't begrudge meager beginnings, and in all honesty, we shouldn't even begrudge meager endings, if that's where we're at. But do you know how the thought, if you're not debt free, just think about it for a minute. How much joy would you get being debt free if you lived in a little one room house but you didn't know any man anything? Or if you lived in a huge home and you knew that every month you had to make your payments. For me, it's a no-brainer. For me, it's just absolutely a no-brainer. All right, well, I'm going to end it here. My battery light's flashing, and I don't want to get halfway through here and not be able to finish. So anyways, I wanted to put that out there. I see a lot of YouTube channels. I see a lot of people homesteading, and that's the feeling that we're getting, is you've got to have it all. And I'm afraid that younger people, impressionable people, are watching and going, I want a homestead, but I got to figure out how to get this. And you don't. You have to what you just need to do is get your homestead started. Even if it's, you know, small for a long time. Even if you sacrifice comfort for a long time, get to the point where you possess that homestead. And then you can always expand and add on. Debt is from the pits of hell. It really is. And there's no reason to increase it when it's not necessary. If your homestead's going to be so big that you have to get all types of equipment, rethink it to begin with. Know that you can change that later on when you're more stable. But, all right, that's it for now. You guys have a great evening. We'll talk soon. God bless.